The war was finally over. Smoke still rose from the broken alien towers, and the ground was littered with ash and metal. The humans had won. The enemy had fallen. But no one celebrated like they should have. Too much had been lost. Inside the ruined palace of the alien king, the last human soldiers stood tall. Their leader, a quiet man named James, had fought harder than all of them. He had saved many lives. He had taken wounds and kept going. And now, the alien king stood before him, surrounded by guards, holding something that looked like a scroll. "You may choose any reward," the alien king announced in a deep voice. "Gold land, weapons, or a wife." James didn't answer at first. He just looked around. Behind the king, lined up in rows, were the alien women. All of them had been trained to serve, dressed in fine silk and jewelry, each one tall and beautiful by alien standards. Their faces were painted. Their eyes avoided his. The crowd whispered. "He'll choose the tall one in green," said one soldier. "No, the one with silver horns," another guessed. But James didn't move toward the front of the line. Instead, he walked to the back. Everyone fell silent. There, far behind the others, stood a woman who didn't wear fancy clothes. She was shorter, hunched a little, with scars across her face and hands. Her skin had a strange texture like cracked stone. Her eyes were dull, her hair dry, and her hands shook slightly. The other alien women looked away from her like she was a mistake. James stopped in front of her. She didn't look up. "This one," he said quietly. The room gasped. Even the alien king raised his brow. "Are you sure, human?" "She is not like the others." She was. Left behind even by her own kind. "We keep her for cleaning floors." James nodded. "I don't want a trophy. I want someone real." The alien king chuckled nervously. "Very well. She is yours." The woman looked up at last. Her eyes met James's. For a moment, they didn't say anything. Then she whispered, "Why?" James answered softly, "Because you're the only one not pretending." She followed him slowly as they left the palace. Her steps were quiet, her back still bent. The other soldiers laughed behind their hands. "He picked the broken one," they said. James ignored them. They boarded his small ship. It wasn't fancy, just a cargo freighter he had rebuilt during the war. He showed her to a clean room with a soft bed and fresh clothes. She stood at the door, afraid to enter. "You can sleep here now," James said. "I'm used to the floor," she replied. "Well, now you have options." That night, James sat alone in the ship's cockpit. He looked at the stars and wondered if he had made a strange choice. But something inside him said it was the right one. Down the hall in her room, the woman sat on the bed, still awake. Her fingers ran across the blanket like she had never felt one before. She whispered something in a language James didn't understand, but it sounded like a prayer. Or a warning. Then she reached under her scarf and pulled out a small, broken necklace. Inside the locket was a picture. Not of Herb, of a child. A young alien girl with bright eyes and soft silver hair. She kissed the photo. "I hope you're still alive," she whispered. "He doesn't know about you yet." Meanwhile, far away on a cold, empty hill, a pair of small eyes watched the stars and whispered into the night air, "Mama?" The ship was quiet as it flew through deep space. James sat in the cockpit, checking systems and coordinates. He had no destination in mind, only a wish to find peace. Behind him, in the back of the ship, the alien woman stayed silent. She had not spoken since they left the palace. She stayed in the small guest room, kept her head down, and locked the door every time she went inside. James didn't ask questions, not yet. He tried to make her feel welcome. He showed her the food storage, the med kit, the water system. She only nodded once and went back to her room. She never joined him at the dining table. She ate only after he left. And she always cleaned everything afterward, like a servant. On the third day, James passed her room and noticed something odd. The air near the door was colder. He paused, but didn't knock. Then he heard something faint whispers. Two voices. One was hers. The other, smaller. Younger. He leaned in, confused. "I said no," she whispered harshly. "But I'm hungry," came a soft, fast reply. "You must stay hidden." "I don't trust him." James stepped back before the conversation ended. His heart raced. Was there someone else in the room? Had she smuggled someone aboard? That night, he left some extra food on the counter and hid behind a curtain. Minutes passed. Then, soft footsteps came. Not hers lighter, quicker. The figure moved fast, grabbed the food, and vanished back down the hall. James walked over and saw crumbs on the floor. Small, sharp footprints, not a grown woman's. They looked like they belonged to a child or something close. He returned to the cockpit, unsure what to do. Who was hiding in that room? The next day, he tried to talk to the woman. "Is everything okay?" He asked gently. "Yes. Are you comfortable?" "Yes. Do you need anything else?" "No." Her eyes didn't meet his. Her hands were shaking. He hesitated, then asked directly, "Is there someone else in your room?" Her breath caught for a second. Then she whispered, "Only memories." He didn't believe her. That night, he left a note beside the food. "Who are you?" When he came back in the morning, the note was gone. In its place was a single word, written in strange handwriting. "Daughter." James froze. He walked slowly toward the locked room and stood in front of it. He knocked once. No answer. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he said aloud. "If someone's in there, I just want to help." Silence. Then, a soft scraping sound like nails on metal. A whisper from behind the door, "She doesn't want you to know." "But I already do." James stepped back. The next day, he decided to leave a gift, a soft blanket and a drawing tablet. He left them near the food. In the morning, the blanket was gone. The tablet now had a drawing on it, a human man, an alien woman, and a small girl with silver eyes all holding hands. The drawing made James sit down for a long time. Who was the girl? And why was she hidden? That night, something changed. The ship shook just a little. James checked the controls. Everything was fine. Then he noticed something on the radar. A signal. Faint, like someone had activated a tracker. From inside the ship, he ran to the locked room. "Open the door," he called. No reply. Suddenly, the door opened by itself, just an inch. Inside, it was dark. James pushed it open slowly. The room was empty. No woman, no child. But on the bed was the same broken necklace the woman had held in the palace. The locket was open. Inside again was the picture of the little girl. On the wall, written in a language James didn't recognize, was a message. He took a photo and ran it through the translator. "You chose me. But you didn't know you were choosing her too." Behind him, something moved in the shadows. James turned quickly. Nothing was there. But the smell of something wild filled the air, and a soft voice echoed down the corridor, almost like a breath. "She's watching you." James couldn't sleep. His ship was moving quietly through space, but inside him, a storm was growing. There was no doubt now someone else was on board, not just the alien woman. A second presence, smaller, hidden, sharp. He thought about the word left on the note. Daughter, and the strange drawing three figures under a starry sky. Why draw that, unless the girl had seen them together? The next morning, James found the food he left half-eaten again, but this time, something new had been left behind. A feather. Not from any bird, he knew, metallic blue, with silver threads that shimmered when touched. He placed it on the control desk and stared at it for hours. That night, James walked the ship in silence. He stopped near the locked room, listening. No voices, no whispers. But the cold in the air was back. A chill that had no source. Suddenly, a soft click. The sound of a hatch closing from the cargo bay. James moved fast. He entered the bay, flashlight in hand. The air smelled like dust and rust. Crates were stacked against the walls. His footsteps echoed. Then he saw it. A pair of glowing eyes staring from behind a box. He froze. She stepped out slowly, not a normal child. She was about 10 or 11, but her features were strange, part alien, part something else. Her silver eyes were wide, but not afraid. Her hair was long, pale, and messy. Her fingers ended in claws, and her feet were bare, skin rough like stone. She didn't speak. James kept still. "You don't have to run," he said softly. She tilted her head. Then she pointed to him and whispered, "You're not like the others." James nodded. "Maybe not." "You picked her." They laughed. He took a breath. Yes, they did. Why? Because she didn't pretend. The girl blinked. "She cries at night." "For me?" James felt a sting in his chest. "I think she still loves you. She was forced to leave me." James lowered his voice. "Are you hungry?" The girl looked away, almost shy. "Always." He reached into his bag and pulled out a warm food pack. He placed it gently on the ground and stepped back. She sniffed the air, then slowly took it and sat on the floor. She ate with small, careful bites. James sat across from her. "What's your name?" he asked. She didn't answer. "Do you have one?" She shrugged. "Mama calls me Laura. That's a good name." She looked at him for a long time. "You're not afraid of me." James smiled weakly. "Should I be?" "I'm not normal," she said quietly. "That's why they hate me." James leaned forward. "Normal is boring." Laura blinked fast. Her claws tapped the floor gently, like a nervous rhythm. "Are you her real daughter?" he asked. She nodded. "She gave birth to me in the caves. She hid me. They said I was a mistake. My father is gone." Mama never talks about him. James thought carefully. "You're not a mistake, Laura." The girl looked down. "They called her ugly because of me. She took the blame." James's fists clenched. Suddenly, Laura stood up. "I'll go. I'll leave this ship. I've stayed too long." "No," James said quickly. "Stay. You're safe here." "Why would you care?" she asked, voice shaking. He looked into her eyes. "'Cause I picked her, and now I know." "I picked you too." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Laura's shoulders dropped just a little. Not relaxed, but less tense. She whispered, "You're different." She was right. Then she turned and vanished back into the shadows, soft as smoke. James didn't follow. He just sat there for a long time, staring at the spot she had stood. Later that night, the alien woman came to the cockpit for the first time. She sat beside James, her hands in her lap. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For hiding her. She's not dangerous." James said gently, "She can be." "If she's hurt?" James nodded. "She told me she watches me. She watches everyone," the woman said. "But you, she listens to you." He looked at her. "Why did you never tell anyone? They would have taken her." "Used her or killed her." James's voice became firm. "Not on my ship." The woman turned to him, eyes wet. "You picked me, even when you didn't have to." "Maybe she deserves that choice too." James whispered, then let her choose. "We'll wait." Outside the window, space stretched forever. But in that small ship, for the first time, 3 hearts beat a little closer together. James set a new course. He didn't ask permission. He didn't need to. After meeting Lyra, the strange daughter with silver eyes, he knew where they had to go. Back to the mountains. Back to the place where the alien woman had been taken and where Lyra had once been left behind. The alien woman, whom James now called Sira, did not object. She only stared at the stars through the window, silent, her face unreadable. "Why are we going back?" She finally asked. She needs to see where it began, James replied. And so do you. Laura didn't speak. She only watched them from the shadows, quiet as always. The ship descended through thick clouds onto a rocky world covered in fog and frost. The mountains were sharp and black, like claws stretching into the sky. No signs of cities. No signals, just silence. Cyril led them through a hidden path. Her feet remembered every stone, every cold turn. Laura followed close, claws gripping the rocks easily. James struggled to keep up. They reached a narrow cave behind a frozen waterfall. Inside, it was dry and warm. Strange symbols were carved into the walls. Some looked ancient. Others looked fresh, newer scratches that James realized had been made with claws. Laura's claws. Syrah lit a small lantern and sat near an old pile of blankets. We lived here for years, she said quietly. I gave birth to her here. She was strong even then, Syrah continued, but different. The others knew. They came once. I fought them off. Then, they returned, and they took you, James said, finishing the thought. Syrah nodded. They didn't see her. She was hiding under the stones. She watched them chain me like an animal. James turned to Laura. That's why you don't trust anyone. Laura didn't answer. She simply walked to a small corner of the cave. There, on the stone, she traced a mark with her finger. It glowed faintly. What is that? James asked. A warning, Leora whispered. For those who come here. Suddenly, James's scanner beeped. A faint signal. Someone else was nearby. He looked at Syrah. Did you leave anything behind? Anything that could be tracked? I carried a wound from the collar, she said. They might have placed a tracker under my skin. James cursed under his breath. He grabbed his gear. We're not alone. Laura sniffed the air. And they're close. 3 of them. Males, loud, heavy boots. Syrah stood up, fear in her eyes. We have to run. But Laura didn't move. Her silver eyes glowed. No, we hide. We listen. James nodded. If we run, they'll chase us. If we stay quiet, maybe they'll pass. They turned off the lantern and pressed themselves against the cave wall. Minutes passed. Then footsteps. 3 alien bounty hunters entered the cave mouth. They wore black armor and held weapons that hummed with deadly energy. One of them sniffed the air. She was here. I smell her. The hybrid too. Orders are clear. Another grunted. We take the girl. Kill the mother if she resists. James's hands clenched around his blaster. His heart pounded. Beside him, Syrah was shaking. But Laura wasn't afraid. She was staring at the hunters with narrow, focused eyes. She whispered, "They're not ready." James whispered back, "Don't do anything stupid." But Laura only smiled faintly. They don't know what I am. Then one of the hunters stepped too close. His foot tapped a loose rock. It echoed loudly. James raised his blaster. Before he could fire, Laura moved, fast as lightning. She flew across the cave like a shadow, claws slashing, teeth bared. She struck the first hunter in the throat. He collapsed without a sound. The second raised his gun too slow. Laura grabbed his weapon and bent it in half with a snarl. He screamed as her claws cut across his chest. The third tried to run, but James stepped out and fired one clean shot center mass. The body dropped. Silence returned. Syrah looked at her daughter. You promised you wouldn't kill. Laura wiped blood from her arm. I didn't promise. I warned them. James walked over slowly. Are you okay? Laura nodded. You're still alive. He smiled. Thanks to you, they burned the bodies outside the cave and covered the tracks. Later that night, as they sat beside the fire, Syrah spoke again. You need to know something, James. He turned to her. There are others like her, quiet, hidden, afraid. James stared into the flames. Then, maybe it's time someone started protecting them. Laura looked up, her silver eyes glowing again. And maybe it's time they learned how to protect you. The mountain wind howled. James stood outside the cave, watching the stars fade into morning. The bodies were gone, burned to ash. But he knew more would come. Bounty hunters never traveled alone. They always sent scouts first. Laura sat beside the fire, her eyes half closed, but not asleep. She never fully rested. Her sharp hearing caught everything: the wind, the smallest footstep, even James's heartbeat. Cira was inside the cave, wrapping James's arm. He had taken a cut during the fight. Nothing deep, but enough to sting. "You should leave us," Cira whispered. James frowned. "Why?" "They're hunting her," she said softly. "You're in danger because of me, because of her." James looked at her firmly. "I don't leave family." Cira flinched, as if she hadn't heard that word in a long time. Laura opened her eyes slowly and spoke without looking. "They're close." James stood up, grabbing his blaster. "How many?" "More than before. 5 ships, maybe 6. I hear engines." James turned to Sarah. "How far is the canyon?" "About 2 hours through the rocks." James nodded. "We run." They packed quickly. No talking. No panic, just fast, practiced movement. Laura led the way. Her feet barely touched the ground. She moved like a ghost. James and Cira followed behind, sticking to shadows, ducking under cliffs. The sky above turned red. Ships were landing nearby. Then came the humming sound. Drones, fast, deadly, and silent. "They've got eyes in the sky," James muttered. Cira turned, her eyes glowing brighter. "Then we blind them." She leaped onto a ledge and climbed a jagged rock wall. She reached a narrow overpass where old alien power cables ran along the cliff. James shouted, "Laura, come back." But she didn't stop. She bit into one of the cables and tore it loose with her claws. Sparks flew. The sky crackled. A wave of static burst upward, interfering with the drones. Seconds later, the drone feed went black. James grinned. "You're full of surprises." Laura jumped down, landing like a cat. "We have 10 minutes." They ran. But at the edge of the canyon, the sound of boots stopped them. 12 armed bounty hunters blocked the path. Each one in black armor, weapons raised. Behind them was a man with a silver crown embedded into his skull. His eyes were cold, robotic. "You've led us on quite the chase," he said. James stood in front of Cira and Laura. "They're not yours." "Their property," the man said calmly. "One is defective. The other is rare. Both have value." Laura stepped forward, eyes glowing dangerously. "We're not things." The man didn't flinch. "You're worse. Your evolution." Suddenly, he raised his hand. "Take them." Gunfire exploded. James pulled Cira down behind a rock and fired back. Blaster bolts lit the sky. Laura was gonna vanish into the smoke. James's shots hit 2 attackers, but there were too many. Then, the ground shook. Screams echoed from the left flank. Laura had returned, leaping from the rocks like a demon. Her claws tore through armor. Her speed was unreal. She broke guns, cracked helmets, bit through wires. But then one hunter grabbed her from behind and fired a stun rod into her back. Laura screamed. She fell. James ran toward. Her butt was tackled. Cira screamed too, running out from cover. "No," she cried. The man with the crown smiled. "Take the girl." A hunter lifted Laura, who was still twitching from the shock. But then James rose, bleeding. Furious, he picked up a metal bar and charged, not even caring that it wasn't a weapon. He smashed it into the hunter's back. The armor cracked. James grabbed Laura and shielded her with his body. Another stun rod hit James in the shoulder. He didn't stop. A third bolt hit him in the ribs. he collapsed. Sira reached them, eyes glowing, her voice rising in a strange toneless scream that sounded like a storm. The air trembled. The ground cracked. And then Laura opened her eyes. Her body pulsed with silver light. She stood, slow and steady. Everyone froze. The man with the crown aimed his weapon. Laura whispered, "Don't touch my family." She raised her hand, and the mountain screamed. Rocks flew. The wind howled. The hunters were thrown back like leaves in a storm. Guns shattered. Armor cracked. When it was over, only James, Sira, and Laura remained standing. The others did not. James coughed, trying to sit up. That was new. Laura turned to him, her eyes calm now. "I held back before. I won't again." James smiled through the pain. "You're definitely your mother's daughter." Sira knelt beside him, eyes full of fear and pride. And for the first time, Laura said something James would never forget. "You're not just someone who picked her. You picked me, too." They walked in silence. James limped, his shoulders still weak from the stun blast. Sira stayed close beside him, supporting him when his legs shook. Laura walked ahead, quiet and alert. Her silver eyes scanned every shadow. Her small body moved with the grace of a predator, but her heart was heavy. The mountain behind them was still smoking from the battle. The wind had stopped howling. But no one felt safe yet. They had survived. But survival wasn't the same as peace. They reached a dry riverbed where broken trees formed a natural shelter. James sat down heavily, breathing hard. Sira knelt to check his wounds again. Laura disappeared into the nearby rocks. "She saved us," James whispered. Sira nodded. "And she scared them." "She scared me too," he said with a half smile. Sira looked up. "She holds more power than they understand." "Then even I understand." James stared into the darkening sky. "She shouldn't have to fight." Sira's voice broke slightly. "She was born fighting." Laura returned, carrying fruits, leaves, and a handful of water in a curved shell. She placed them near James without speaking. Then she sat across from him, arms wrapped around her knees. James ate quietly. Then he looked at her. "You did what you had to do." Laura shook her head. "I almost lost control." "But you didn't." "I felt something," she said, her voice soft, "when he touched you. I felt it through my bones. I didn't know what it was." James looked at her gently. "It was fear. Not for yourself, but for someone else." She nodded slowly. "It made me ... angry, not wild. Just clear." Sira watched her daughter with soft, careful eyes. "Do you hate what you are?" James asked. Laura thought for a long moment. "Sometimes," she whispered, "but not today." James smiled. "Then you're learning." Laura looked up. "I don't want to be hunted. I don't want to live in shadows." "You shouldn't have to," James said. "Then what should I be?" James leaned forward. "Whatever you decide." Laura blinked, confused. "But I wasn't made to choose." "Yes, you were," James said firmly. "You just never had the chance." She stood up and paced. "What if I choose wrong? What if I become like them?" James looked at her with calm strength. "Then we remind you who you are." Laura stopped. "And who is that?" James said it without hesitation. "You're not a weapon. You're not a curse. You're family." Sira's eyes filled with tears. She had never heard someone say that, not even when Laura was born. Laura walked over to James and knelt beside him. "If I choose, can I choose to stay?" He blinked. "Stay here." "With here?" "With her. I don't want to run anymore." James swallowed the lump in his throat. "Then stay. Please." Sira reached out and touched her daughter's shoulder, whispering something in their old tongue. Laura looked at them both. "I don't need a father. she said honestly. "But if I ever did, I'd choose you." James looked down, trying to hide his emotion. "I'm honored." That night, they built a fire and shared stories. Sarah spoke of the caves where she hid Laura as a baby, of how she sang to her in the dark, even when her voice was dry from thirst. Laura spoke of growing up alone, learning to hunt, learning to survive by watching shadows and listening to the wind. James told them stories from Earth, of cities that never slept, of rain that smelled like smoke and flowers at once, of laughter, even during war. Laura listened with wide eyes. "Do you miss it?" "Every day," James said. "Would you go back?" He paused. "Not without you." Laura tilted her head. "They wouldn't like me there. They'll have to learn. And if they don't..." James looked at her. "Then I'll build a home where they can't touch us." The fire crackled between them. A family built not by blood, but by choice. And that choice was finally hers. Weeks passed. The world they chose was quiet. No name, no cities, just wide open skies and soft hills. James fixed the old ship and turned it into a home. Solar panels on the roof, a water tank out back, and a long workbench where he repaired broken things: blasters, radios, old tools. Sarah planted blue flowers near the door. She sang when no one was listening, and Lyra are changed. She started speaking more, not loud, but steady. She helped James build fences. She helped Sarah cook. She learned to smile, not often, but real. She had never been a child before. Slowly, she was learning how to be one. One morning, James stepped outside to find something strange. A metal box, perfectly welded, sat in the middle of the yard. It hadn't been there last night. On top was a note written in rough handwriting. "For you, from me." James opened it. Inside was a suit, lightweight, armored, flexible, sleek human tech fused with alien design. It had silver threads that shimmered under the sun and a chest plate etched with 3 small symbols, one for Sarah, one for Laura, and one for him. He turned and found Laura standing behind him, holding a welding tool. "I built it," she said. James stared at the suit, speechless. "This is beyond anything I've seen." Laura stepped closer. "I remembered how you got hurt. I didn't want that to happen again." James looked at her. "Where did you learn to do all this?" She smiled just a little. "I watched you. And I remembered what I saw in the old labs when I was hiding." James shook his head in awe. "This is better than military grade." She shrugged. "I just wanted to say thank you, but I don't know how to say it. So I built something." James knelt and put a hand on her shoulder. "You said it better than anyone ever could." Inside the house, Sarah watched from the window, her eyes full of peace. Later that day, a message came through the old COM system. James checked the signal: low frequency, scrambled. Someone was trying to hide their location. He played the message. It was a young voice, shaky. "I heard stories about a human who protected a hybrid. I'm one too. I'm scared. Please, is it true? Is there really a safe place?" Laura stood behind him, listening. Her claws tapped the floor slowly. James turned to her. "Should we answer?" She nodded. He sent a reply. "You're not alone. We're here. We're building something. A place where no one hunts you and no one owns you. Come if you can. We'll wait." Over the next few weeks, more messages came. Whispered voices from broken ships. Hidden children, mothers, some alone, some afraid. Each one heard the same thing from James and Laura. "You're not a mistake. You're welcome." By the end of the second month, 3 more families had arrived. Quiet, scared, but hopeful. Laura taught one of the young hybrids how to weld. She gave him his first set of tools. James handed out maps, safety codes, and fresh clothes. He called it the circle. Sarah taught the children old songs. She smiled more, laughed sometimes. One night, James and Laura sat on the roof, watching the stars. "Do you think this will last?" she asked. James looked at her. "To last as long as we keep choosing it." Laura was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Why did you really pick her?" That day, at the ceremony, James took a long breath. Because she wasn't trying to be perfect. She wasn't showing off. She was just standing there. Honest, tired, still brave. Laura nodded slowly. "That's what I saw too. That's why I stayed with her." James looked at her, smiling. "And you?" She turned to him. "You were the first person who saw me. Not as a danger, not as a tool, but as a daughter, even when I didn't believe it myself." James placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we saved each other. The wind carried the smell of flowers and metal. The stars blinked softly above them. From somewhere far off, a child's laughter echoed through the camp. And Laura whispered, like a secret carried on the wind, "This time, I choose to stay."